Welcome in, everybody, to Betting Pros. It's me, Joey P, Joe Pisapia. That is Scott Bogman, and it's you, and we're taking you through Week 7 in college football. I can't believe it's Week 7 already. I know we say that every single week. Some massive upsets last week, including a loss from Alabama. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into that Penn State-Iowa game, and of course, we're going to look ahead to Week 7, everything else going on, the likes and the leans from Scott Bogman, but Boggs, I got to tell you, I watched Calzada play. I was very impressed with him. He made some mistakes, but he bounced back. That's what you have to do with the quarterback position when you play a team like Alabama. And I continue to bang the drum of I am thoroughly unimpressed by Bryce Young. I understand he hasn't been around very long, but he continues to get propped up by the surrounding talent. And this time, it wasn't enough, as H8 and company really did put a number on number 1 ranked Alabama and really changed the dynamic of the BCS right now.
I mean, they had just passed 100 straight games of beating unranked teams. Alabama had, and they walked into Texas A&M, who looked like garbage all year. I wrote in my article about how much Alabama was going to smash them. So this one is clearly on me. So my apologies, Bama fans, that this loss is clearly on me because I picked Alabama and the over. We only went 5-5 this week on the article, but that was a huge one. And, we said it before in the show, Joe, that Bama looked more beatable than ever. In the last
Florida,
4
they
or 5
struggled,
years.
right? They struggled a little with Florida. I feel like this is a younger Alabama team, and maybe the loss is a good thing for them. Does that make sense? Like, maybe there's a feeling of invincibility with them that I think for a younger team that's got more sophomores and juniors than juniors and seniors on it, maybe that turns around and you actually build off of that. It could be a positive thing long term.
Yeah, I mean, you should see the Bama fans. Half of them want Saban fired, or not half, but a lot of them. And
how idiotic is that? Like, that's gonna be the dumbest thing ever.
Dude.
How good of a coach is Nick Saban? I mean, come on.
He's old. The game has passed him by, and then
did it pass him by last year when he was winning national championship again?
Right, exactly. So I mean, it's just reactionary, of course. But A&M, they look good, man. This is kind of the A&M we expected to see this year with Haynes King at the helm. But Calzada came in, and I'm telling you, he looked like absolute garbage for the first 3 weeks. He had a couple, you can see some stuff there, but it was like he was just not ready. And whatever, he saved it all for Alabama, he looked great, and they won. And congrats to the Aggies, and everyone around me is real happy this week. So that's super annoying because I am depressed.
Yes, and he's depressed because Texas, let's put it mildly, choked against Oklahoma. Yeah, that's a choking sound from Scott Bogman there. Oh. There you go. That's what that is. And it's funny because I came home and I saw that they had a lead. I watched, like the second quarter or so, and then I had to go back out, came home, and they had lost. So what happened here to Texas?
Well, they switched. It's Oklahoma switching from Spencer Rattler to Caleb Williams, and they were not ready for it. Texas was. I think they got a little comfortable in their lead. They didn't go to Bijan enough in the second half. Xavier Worthy fumbled a kickoff. He had an enormous game. He had over 200 yards receiving, opened up the game with the 75-yard touchdown. He's a true freshman, too. So, in spring, they were calling him Texas's version of Devontae Smith because, of course, Sark coming over from Bama, coached up Devontae Smith, and he was fantastic in this game, but he had that huge fumble, and they couldn't stop Kennedy Brooks. They got real tired in the second half, the defense did, run around trying to stop Caleb Williams, and they just got smoked. And it looks like Oklahoma has their new starting quarterback, and you talk about someone who lost a lot in that game.
Yeah.
I think Spencer Rattler lost more than Texas did because he was the number 1 quarterback on mock draft boards, and now he's going to the bench. So
okay, well, is he going to the bench, or is he going to transfer somewhere else and stay in another year?
Well, I think that's a smart idea for him is if he transfers. I think he wants to stick at Oklahoma to see if he can keep this job. And Lincoln Riley has said that he's not going to announce a starter. But I don't know if you saw all of this stuff. But some OU, newspaper kid or whatever that is writing for the Sooners newspaper went across to a public building with binoculars and then watched who was taking first team snaps, and it was all Caleb Williams. So
no, well, I mean, I'm not
Lincoln
surprised.
Riley subsequently canceled his media availability for the week, I guess, because he's upset about that. But come on, man. Like, you look like garbage on offense all year long. You put in Caleb Williams and you roll over a team that had been beating you into the dirt for the first quarter and a half. And this guy, the way the kids reacted to him when he came in too, you can't not go back to Caleb Williams. I mean, that is like a fireable offense. So
I would agree. And look, for Rattler, I mean, his draft stock right now, I mean, you've got to go transfer somewhere else and stay in college. Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, that's not going to sit well. And look, you have a path there. I mean, look at what Jalen Hurts was able to do. Look at what Joe Burrow was able to do. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that you could take your stock and improve it again. So it's a smart thing to do. You have Georgia, Iowa, Cincinnati, and Oklahoma, the new top four. Iowa with that big win, played some great defense. We've been talking about their defense all year against Penn State, who was down to their second and then that third string quarterback in that game at one point. So fascinating to see just the one SEC team right now in the top four. It's not what we're used to.
Well, we last week said it's just Georgia and Alabama by far in a way better than everybody else. I think it might just be Georgia. So
at this point,
now that Alabama lost to A&M, we can call that a hiccup, whatever you want to. I still think they're going to make the tournament here, but that's a rough loss to an unranked team. So I don't know. Good luck, Mississippi State, against Bama this week. That's all I have to say for them. So.
Well, let's start with the likes here, and let's turn the page to week 7 in college football. Let's start with 20th ranked Florida, 10.5-point favorites at LSU. The over-under is 59. So what do we like about this one, Boggs?
Well, Florida's going to live and die by Emory Jones and how he's playing. And he's been pretty damn good this season without the obvious hiccup to Kentucky. LSU, they've gotten stomped twice, first by UCLA, then last week by Kentucky. Right now, I have no faith whatsoever in their offense. They're 127th in rushing. The three teams behind them are Arkansas State, Bowling Green, and Mississippi State. So LSU's 22nd in passing offense, but they did just lose their number one pass catcher in Boutte, who has been on the receiving end of 29% of their pass yards this season. So I think this is Florida just dominating a one-dimensional offense in LSU. I don't think it's going to be very close. So I got Florida, and I'll lay the points in this one.
All right, let's move on to Auburn at Arkansas. Arkansas ranked 17th. Arkansas favorite in this one at home. 3.5 is the number. The over-under is 53, Boggs. Your thoughts on this one?
I mean, we didn't even talk about this game. It might have been the most fun game to watch of the week. I mean, it was for me because my game wasn't. Arkansas and Ole Miss going down to the wire. And Arkansas losing by going for that 2-point conversion, which is a call I like. They're on the road. It's a tough game. You're not going to stop Ole Miss in overtime. They've been, put up 52 points. So just go for it. It didn't work, but I like the call. Arkansas, so they showed they have to be taken seriously. And everyone has gotten beat down by Georgia. And the closest game for Arkansas here was TAMU outside of that Georgia beatdown, right? And they've beat everyone else except for Ole Miss in this game. Auburn doesn't have it. Jefferson's back to being 100%. Auburn isn't a slouch, and they match up well on paper against Arkansas. But I just think the Razorbacks are less likely to fold up. Bo Nix has been so unbelievably inconsistent. I got to go with Arkansas in this game. At 3.5, that's just not enough points. I think that they're going to beat down Auburn. I don't think it's going to be that close.
I know they've been hoping that Bo Nix developed into something more, but it really just hasn't happened. I understand it's a good story and the legacy and the whole thing and all that stuff, but to me, Bo Nix just doesn't have that other gear that I can understand a couple years ago them thinking that, over time.
Well, he was a huge time, high school prospect.
Yeah, I know, but sometimes that doesn't translate.
It just doesn't. It doesn't translate for a lot of those guys, and this is definitely one of them.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to UCF at third-ranked Cincinnati. My boy, Desmond Ridder. Cincinnati, huge number in this game. 20.5. That is enormous there. 57.5 is the over-under. Boggs, can Cincinnati cover the 20.5 here?
I think they can. And I like UCF going into this year, but they're down their starting quarterback in Dylan Gabriel. They're down their number one running back, we think, in Isaiah Bowser this week. He may or may not play. He's in the air. They're down their number one wide receiver in Jalen Robinson. They're a middle-of-the-road team. without those guys. They just lost to Navy. So Cincinnati can absolutely not afford to have anything go wrong for them. You cannot give the playoff committee an excuse to exclude you. So you have to beat down every single team you play for the rest of the season. No, you cannot take the foot off the gas. It's got to stay on. And they have to go out there and destroy everyone they're playing. And I think they roll in this one too. UCF is not the same team without Dylan Gabriel. Mikey Keene is doing all he can, but it's tough, man. He is no Gabriel, not yet anyway. So I got the Bearcats, and I'll lay the points for your boy Ritter.
11th ranked Kentucky visits Georgia, number 1 in the nation right now, minus 23. That's where we are. Georgia is 23-point favorites in this one, 44.5. Kentucky's played well, though, this year. Is there any chance Kentucky can make this a game, though, against Georgia, or is Georgia just in a whole other class?
I think Georgia is in a place of their own. Now, I talked to my guys, Nick and Xavier. We do the CFP Winning Edge podcast, and I great respect for those guys. And they both think that Kentucky's going to cover. And they're both from Georgia, Georgia fans. So, but I just don't think that what's the most points someone scored on Georgia this year? Do you know just off the top of your head?
I don't.
13.
Oh, is that it?
13 points. I was
going to say 20.
That was South Carolina 20, huh? On they scored a garbage touchdown in the fourth quarter to get to 13.
Wow.
Clemson put up 7 against them. Yeah, 7. Clemson's been having offensive issues, of course, but Kentucky's had a fantastic year. 6-0. They beat Florida. They beat the crap out of LSU, 42-21. The issue for Kentucky is that Georgia they haven't allowed anyone to score. And Kentucky's, just statistically, they're one-dimensional. They're 23rd in rushing. They're 97th in passing. I know by analytics and stuff, my guy Nick talked about this, how they're, they're 41st in passing efficiency. I don't care. Georgia's 4th against the run, 1st in passing defense and scoring. This could easily be another shutout for them, I think. I don't think it will be, but I think that they win this one going away. This is another, 35-7 type of a game, and that's not going to play towards Kentucky at all. So I've got Georgia rolling again.
Well, Georgia's in the driver's seat right now, so they better not let up because, I mean, really, it's theirs now. It's theirs to run away with, quite literally, in their style of play. Purdue at second-ranked Iowa. Iowa 11.5-point favorites in this one. 43 is the number. Is there any room for an Iowa letdown after a very emotional game last week with Penn State?
There could be, and that's, there's going to be a lot of talk about letdowns this week, and that's why a lot of betting is going in the opposite direction. More money is going towards Kentucky than Georgia, right? But in this game, the public is still hard on Iowa. I mean, talking 90% cash on Iowa, and Purdue has a pretty solid passing game, and they're led by quarterback Aiden O'Connell, wide receiver David Bell. They're 10th in passing offense, but once again, another one-dimensional team, 122nd in rushing. Purdue has also had problems punching it in. They're 102nd in scoring, 23.6 points per game. That's it. When you're 5th in passing, 10th in passing, I mean, you should be scoring more than 23 points a game. They're going to face an Iowa defense that is 4th in scoring. They're allowing 13 points per game, 22nd in pass defense, less than 200 yards per game, and 10th against the run. Not that it's going to matter because Purdue doesn't run, but the real difference is that Iowa picks the ball off a lot. They have 16 picks this year, and they're going to force Purdue into some bad looks. They should get up, so they're going to be playing with pressure and pinning their ears back here. Iowa is not great on offense. They're middle of the road. They're a good rushing team. They don't pass a ton and not efficiently, but they're just going to have more than enough to get it done against Purdue here. I think the defense is just too dominant. So I'll lay that 11.5, and I'll lay that 11.5 with more confidence than I would Georgia in 23 or Cincinnati in 20.5. So I really like Iowa. Always a chance for a letdown, but I just don't see it happening for them against Purdue.
Poor Mississippi State. Having to host Alabama after Alabama taking the loss last week. Alabama is favored by 17. The number's 57.5. Yeah, I mean, like I said, poor Mississippi State. That's all I got to say here.
They're going to beat the bejesus out of Mississippi State. I mean, I know they're on the road and everything, but they're pissed coming off that loss to Texas A&M.
Could you imagine what this week in practice has been like for those kids?
Just horrific. Bama hasn't lost to Mississippi State since 2007. They've won by 17 the last 3 years. And in Mike Leach's first year coaching Mississippi State last year, they shut them out 41-0. This is a one-dimensional offense. They're fifth in passing. They're dead last in rushing. So when you give a Bama team the blueprint on that, it's just not going to be very pretty. So I picked Bama last week, and it didn't work out for me and everything.
Well, but I think everybody picks Bama every week because Bama is Bama.
They're not great against the spread, though, so I understand that.
This year they've been a little bit more mortal. They came out like gangbusters, but then you saw a little bit of a more mortal version of them.
Chink in the armor, right? Yeah.
You saw the transition. You saw like the younger guys taking over and living off of the old glory a little bit, and you got to execute at the end of the day. Everyone's gunning for you because you're Alabama. There's no letdowns. There's no rest. And I think sometimes it's good for a younger football team to learn that. And look, they had a ton of guys leave last year to go in the draft, right? So this is a big turnover into their roster, and this is, learning things the hard way, unfortunately. TCU at Oklahoma. Oklahoma ranked fourth. 13.5 is the number here. Oklahoma's favored by 65 is the number, assuming Caleb Williams is the starting quarterback. How do you see this one going?
Look, this is the letdown spot, and the public is betting it as the letdown spot. 80% cash on TCU as it stands right now as we're going here. And I think it's for two reasons. Number one, it's a huge letdown spot. So much emotion winning that game against Texas and in a comeback fashion, and it being one of the all-time instant classic Red River rivalry games. But TCU is not the TCU. If this was normal TCU, I would be like, yep, they're going to have that huge letdown against the Horned Frogs. But there's not the same team they've been in the past, TCU, this year. They're also going to be down potentially their three top players. Their top three guys are questionable. Quarterback Max Duggan, who's having a fantastic year. Running back Zach Evans and wide receiver Quentin Johnston, all questionable. Now, those guys got banged up against Texas Tech. They still wound up putting 52 points up, but Oklahoma ain't Texas Tech. So they've had a weird year. They lost to Texas and had a bad loss to SMU. I know this is a traditional letdown spot, but I don't think this TCU team is the team that does it. And I think that Oklahoma has found it on offense with Caleb Williams. I mean, I play a lot of CFF, Joe, you know that. And this guy, Marvin Mims for Oklahoma, was a very, very high pick because Spencer Rattler was a very high pick, right? It was supposed to be these two connecting a bunch on offense. He scored his first touchdown when Caleb Williams threw it to him this week. So they're a different beast on offense with Caleb. And, Spencer Rattler just wasn't getting it done. So Williams is going to start. I think Oklahoma starts to roll downhill a little bit, and TCU is the first stop on that.
All right, let's do the last of the likes here. 18th ranked Arizona State, 1-point favorites at Utah. The number's 50.5. This one's tight, Boggs. How do you see this one shaking out?
I almost put this in the leans because I keep screwing up ASU. Like, I can't seem to pick them correct any week. But I see this -1. It's too tasty for me. I got to take it. And money's on Utah. And I understand that. Utah's a good team specifically at home, but ASU's been great this year. Their only loss was to a tough BYU team on the road where they had 16 penalties to 3 for BYU. Utah lost the same game against BYU, but BYU had more penalties than them. They also had a weird loss to San Diego State. Utah's just not their normal selves. They're kind of like the TCU of the Pac-12 here. The only reason this line is close, in my opinion, is because the Utes just beat down USC, but USC is going through a lot with firing their head coach and having an interim and all that stuff. I think this one is an Arizona State beatdown. I've been wrong about them, but even if it's a close one, you're only laying a point here. I think the line should be closer to 6 or 7 in Arizona State's favor. So I'll lay that point without issue for ASU. I think they're a pretty solid team. And, I know that there's a lot of turmoil going on with ASU on the outside with Herm Edwards and the investigation and all that stuff. But the kids really seem to be internalizing it and just playing for this season. So I got the Sun Devils in that one.
All right, those are the likes, so let's get to the leans. We'll start with Clemson, 14-point favorites against Syracuse. The number's 45. Syracuse has not played very well. Should Clemson just stomp them?
I want to say that, but Clemson can't seem to put it together on offense. They're 112th in scoring because of the pathetic passing game, which is 130. This is Clemson. They're 113th in passing this year. The run game is nothing to write home. They're 84th. The good news is they're still second in scoring defense, 21st against the run and 41st against the pass. So they're still playing really well on defense. Syracuse is getting it done right now, running the ball and playing good defense. They're 31st against the run and pass, 64th in scoring. I don't have any faith in anyone here. Gun to my head, I'm going to take Clemson, and I'm going to take the over because it's 45. And I just can't believe a Clemson game is that low. But, they're coming off a bye week too. I think the offense is ready to break out at any point here. So Clemson is a little banged up, but I'm still going to lean towards them. And Will Shipley might not play, but they've got a million running backs at Clemson, so they'll be okay. So I'll take them, but I don't know, man. They've been unbelievably disappointing. I'm not doing it with a ton of confidence is all.
Oh, that's why it's a lean and not a like. Yeah. Ninth-ranked Oregon is going to host Cal. Oregon, 13.5-point favorites. The number is 54. Your thoughts on this one?
I can't figure out Oregon to save my life. They beat Ohio State, then they lose to Stanford. And the money is going towards Cal in this game. Oregon,
Stanford's not a bad team, though, in all fairness. They might be the best team in their conference.
You know what? What is that saying, though? It's
not
saying
much.
Pac-12 is rough, right?
I know.
I think ASU might be the best team, but it's probably still Oregon. But they also just lost. Their number one rusher in CJ Verdell. They have a very capable backup at Travis Dye. He's a little banged up. He had a concussion. I think he's going to be okay this week, though. But Cal's had one of the most brutal schedules so far. The 4 losses coming against Nevada, TCU, Washington, and Washington State. Oregon's 1-4 against the spread, so they haven't been great as far as betting on them this season, with the one win being the upset win over Ohio State. Cal is 2-2 for what looks like no rhyme or reason. So I'm going to go with Oregon because they can't afford to have another letdown week. So I think they beat up on Cal, but every time I pick Oregon, they screw me, and they're 1-4 this year. So no confidence.
All right, very well. Let's move on to the next one here. Oklahoma State, ranked 12th in the nation, at 25th ranked Texas. Texas 5.5-point favorites. The number 16.5. Boggs, does Texas rebound after a very tough loss last week?
Well, see, the bettors don't think so. I mean, heavily in the favor of Oklahoma State right now. I think as far as talent goes, I think Texas has them beat. But if we get strong Texas, they'll probably dominate. They're at home. It's big to start out well for your home crowd, get them really involved in the game and all that stuff. Would be huge, but OK State has played some tough games and they're undefeated. I think there's a difference between the offenses that they faced and Texas. Texas is 9th in rushing, they're 5th in scoring, and they're going to match up against the OK State defense that is 12th against the run and 24th in scoring. So this is all going to come down to Bijan Robinson, in my opinion, because I think after shying away from him in the second half and not controlling the clock a little more, they just have to go, what the hell were we thinking, and give the ball to Bijan here in this game. So I do like Texas in this one, but if we get flat Texas, this is the ultimate Sark coaching moment for me. It is if you can get these guys up to play after a bad emotional loss. Right. That's the big question, because no other coach since Mac has been able to do it. So, and Mac wasn't able to do it at the end either. So it's a huge test for a new head coach, and one that I am looking forward to seeing how Texas responds.
Last here on the list, 19th ranked BYU at Baylor. Baylor 6.5-point favorites in this one. The number is 50.5. Your thoughts on this one?
This is one I hate the most of the week right here. I do not like it, Joe. I haven't been able to figure out BYU at all. Baylor's look good. Baylor smoked West Virginia last week, and their only loss is to 12th ranked OK State. BYU's having a great year, but they're coming off their first loss against Boise State last week. I think I like the way Baylor is playing right now with quarterback Jerry Bohannon. They're 16th in rushing, 17th in scoring. BYU is better at stopping the run, but they're kind of middle of the pack-ish, 51st. BYU is going to get their starting quarterback Jaron Hall back this week, but they're middle of the pack in every offensive stat. So I don't think that they're going to blow Baylor out of the water. I'm just going to take Baylor because of the home team here. I like what Bohannon has done. But I can't seem to figure out BYU. So like I said, I like Baylor, but not with an enormous amount of confidence.
All right, check out all the rest over at bettingpros.com, including Scott Bogman's picks every single week. And make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Always great content there at Betting Pros. All the consensus lines for all the houses. That way you can make the best wagers to win yourself some cash. We'll be back again next week to do it all again and recap the week that was. In the meantime, that'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Scott Bogman, I'm Joey P. We will see you next time, kids.